Welcome to MoonShooting, a podcast about using your power to achieve your dream, reconnecting to your passion, and the money to get you there. In MoonShooting, your dream is not about what you create or what you achieve. It's about you. You are the brand. You are the dream. You are the moonshot.
What does everybody want? Power. In their relationships, in their social circles, in business, and over their creations, and in their life. You are somewhere on the spectrum of being either powerless or powerful. In these next 5 episodes, we will focus on the power of you and how you use it to either build a powerful or powerless life, no matter what path you're on. In this episode, we make the assertion, everybody has a personal brand, and it's the only thing you should invest in. Powerful people invest in their own personal brand. Powerless people invest in other people's brands, not their own.
Welcome back.
I didn't know we were gone.
Well, we're super excited to be back, and thanks everyone for sticking around with us.
And don't leave.
Yes, we would be very hurt if you left. So as you guys heard, we are starting a new series, which we'll be doing from time to time. About every 5 episodes, we'll kind of shift gears and have a different theme for those next 5. So the last 5, we kind of set the stage for everything right. Hopefully you guys got to know us a little bit better.
I think of it as the agony of you, like the being stuck, the agony, the problem set. And you're going to hear about that. And then all of a sudden, yeah, I get it. And now we need to kick it up a notch.
Exactly. So to jump into it, one of our first new segments is called From the Mind of Maud. And Maud is from Mark Modica, and one of your nicknames is Maud.
Absolutely. Right.
So,
and it's a algorithm that I built called the Maud Score around what I consider mission, obsession, domain. And that's sort of a way to look at startup companies. And we are not going to get to that. We're going to kind of use some of the things I learned in startups to talk about you as an individual.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. So from the mind of Maud, what we talked about before is you think of things as either your opinion or data and misinformation, things like that. I like to think of something as an assertion. I look at data. I look at patterns and things. I've always been that way. I'm a kind of the weirdo who looks at a series of data and I don't have a preconceived notion for it. But I'm like, how does that data correlate? What's up with that, right? And so when you make an assertion, you are saying something that you see, that you believe has merit. It's not necessarily a fact, and it's not necessarily opinion. It's what I call an assertion. So from the mind of Maud is an assertion or something based upon some data that should be interesting to people here.
Okay.
And one of the data sets that I was really interested in, I started looking and saying, okay, in going for your dream, we talk about dropping out of college or dropping out of anything, right? People are like dropping out, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want you to think that we're telling you to drop out of college or telling you to drop out of your job. We don't want you to think that, And so I was looking at that and I was like, okay, I looked at 17 successful icons who had done one thing in common. And the one thing that they had in common, I just started listing them. One thing that they had in common was, the first thing was that they got into college and then dropped out.
Oh, interesting.
So what was really important to me was the fact that they checked the box. And it was really a wide variety of people. Very diverse, very equitable, as we talked about. If I think of the women that I saw right away that I've talked about before, Ellen went to school in New Orleans for like a year. Oprah had this really crazy experience at Tennessee State where her dad was like, you're not going to be an actress. You're not going to take a job, blah, blah, blah. In broadcast or the industry that she's in now, she got offered an incredible opportunity while she was in college. Her father said no, and her professor called her father and said, this is what she's going to college for. She went and did it and structured it around being in college and doing the job at the same time and realized by her junior year or sophomore year, whatever it is, she just dropped out to do that thing that she loved. It was an opportunity.
Yeah.
And then so we have like other people like that, crazy, like Ralph Lauren. like Michael Jordan, well, of course, basketball player, but still, So a bunch of different people in that genre that had dropped out. Everyone knows Steve Jobs. Everyone knows Bill Gates. Everyone knows people like that. Men. There's a lot of men, but there's a lot of women that did it too.
Yeah.
Right. And from different backgrounds. And they all had the same thing in common, whether it was Harvard or whether it was Tennessee State, didn't really matter. They checked the box. They got in. They either had an opportunity or they were like, hey, this is not what I want to do, but I got in. And they could always say they got in.
Right.
Right. So that was the first part. And then I looked at the second part and I said, okay, what did they do when they got out? What was the pattern? And then this was a notion of what the episode is about. They invested in their own brand. The one pattern that I saw after them getting into college, when they came out, what did they do? They used whatever job they had, like Oprah had, was like a broadcaster. And then she had her own show, which she became the product. And then she turned that product into a platform.
Right.
And off of that platform, and this was very similar to what, if you're in venture capital, it was very similar to what we think of. Service-based businesses are the lowest valuation, platforms are the highest. So they invested in themselves to the fact that they got to a platform. Like Michael Jordan, you saw that movie about Up in Air, right?
Air, yeah.
Yeah, like George Clooney did the same thing. Madonna did the same thing. She had hit records, but all of a sudden then she became her own production company, and she's in all these other things like movies and all this. She's using her name as a brand. George Clooney just put out Casamigos, so most people have made more money off their name in some kind of platform than just the service, right? Right. So those are the patterns I saw, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. How can we help people who, maybe not want to be an icon?
Yeah, because like a lot of those people, they're not all of them, but a lot of them are performers or entertainers to some degree. And they had that, that big dream of like making it big, and they want to be, this powerful person that makes this major, major impact. Well, what if that's not you? What if you don't have a dream to be like super famous or super, this or that? Like, what if we lower the stakes a little bit?
Well, people think of power as having unlimited and really big power like that, right? But you can do the same thing in very small ways. Like your notion of how much power you want could be over your job, over your career, right? So what I say to people is, you either want to be powerful or powerless, right?
Right.
Do you care about being powerful or powerless? Do you care about being powerless? If you don't care about being powerless, then none of this really matters to you. But being powerless is having somebody tell you what to do. Being powerless is not having any say over your life.
Like autonomy.
Yeah. Those people had power over their lives. What they did with it is up to you.
They made decisions that to the outside world would be considered risky. Because before they were stars or this or that or successful, they weren't known. They were just like everybody else, but they made a decision that didn't fall in line because they were focused on themselves.
Right. So like,
not in a selfish way, but just in a screw the noise. I know this is what I have to do this next step.
Yeah. Like if you have a job, you are the service. Some jobs, when they bill you out, you're the product too. When you leave your job or you want to create something, you become the product, right? Like at the business, how do you turn that into a platform? So instead of you having to sell yourself, you have a platform that you use what you've created and you can scale that. Now, there are people that are heads of companies. There are people that are like, a principal in a school, or if you're a teacher, people are going to know you as a brand. They're going to know what you do and how you do it. Your power comes from understanding your brand, understanding who you are, utilizing your power to what you really want, and then getting to the point where you are a platform, but you don't need to be an open platform, but you can follow the exact same sort of way that she did it. And that's going to be part of what we're going to not teach, but give you the tools and give you the ability to do what she did, but no, it could be on a smaller basis.
So should we do an example of what you mean by that on a smaller basis, what that looks like?
Yeah, this is a great transition because we're transitioning to our next segment called Kespi's World. Now, Kespi is
the first initial of my name and then the beginning of my last name, Espinosa. So
it's a nickname, right?
yeah,
Right.
Kespi, Kespinosa, everybody, just my whole life. It's been some form of that.
Right. So Kespi's World is what we're going to talk about. We make an assertion about some data. How does it apply to you specifically, or how does it apply to people like you?
Yeah.
Now, of course, not everybody is educated, what people think of as a white girl, even though you don't have just a white origin. You have a Colombian father.
Yep. I'm half Colombian.
Which is silly that people think that way, but that's okay. Right. But we have had some privilege, both of us.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've just had great education, and my father made it that way. Your father gave you the opportunity.
Oh my God, worked his butt off for us to have what we have and the blessings that the opportunities we've been able to have.
Right. So a lot of people have privilege but are unhappy. And then people are getting all crazy about that. Wait, you have privilege. Why would you be unhappy?
Right.
You're super woke. Well, wait a second. My happiness has nothing to do with what I was given.
Yeah.
It's what I'm doing with it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
They call that Nepo in like Hollywood and places like that.
Right. If you have rich or famous parents.
Right.
Yeah.
Not every child of a famous parent has been successful.
Yeah.
So let's talk about you. We had this amazing day. We went out to this really cool restaurant called MoonShooting out in Malibu, and we were talking about this and how we can make this moonshooting better and what were we really doing. And so we came to the conclusion what we're doing right now is like, this is about power and this is about the individual. And something really funny happened at the very end where there was a power dynamic. And the power dynamic was, and you and I are both empaths, and so the power dynamic was at the very end, I was like, hey, let's get one dessert, right? And you pick. And then you were like, I know that you told me you don't like creme brulee, right? And then I said, no, pick what did you want?
Yeah.
Like, be narcissistic, be selfish, pick what you want. Don't think about me. Think about what you want and let me react to that. And then what happened?
Yeah. So I went down the line and I knew that I first noticed the creme brulee right away. I was like, ooh, that sounds refreshing. And I would really like to crack that hard caramelized sugar on the top.
Right.
But I just kind of moved past it because you had also mentioned that you weren't you're not a creme brulee guy.
I do not like creme brulee.
So I put that off the table and I put tiramisu off the table.
You gave me my power back.
Yeah.
Right. And what did I say?
Yeah. And you were like, no, if you want the creme brulee.
Take the power I gave you.
Yeah.
Use the frickin' power.
Yeah.
Right? Get the frickin' creme brulee. Even if I don't like it, stop worrying about what I want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then what happened?
And then I said, okay, well, yeah, it really kind of was the first thing I wanted.
But when we talked about power, one of the things you said, I'm uncomfortable with having a lot of power.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you don't want people to have power over you, do you? We're just talking about having no one have power over you.
Absolutely. And it kind of spun into this conversation about a negative connotation to the word power. Because I immediately, at least me, I have this ooh, kind of moment where I'm like, power.
Well, we're taught to give everyone our power.
We're taught to everyone to give our power. And then a lot of times power can be in line with corruption, right? Or negativity or
We give all our power away to people who have no problem using our power against us.
Right.
Right. Which is the whole problem right now we have in society, right? The whole patriarchy, all that stuff, right?
Exactly.
Right. So the tiramisu came out.
No, the creme brulee.
The creme brulee. And it was like the best creme brulee I've ever had. And it was different because they made it differently. And I was like, this is a fantastic dessert. See, we both won.
Yeah.
And you took the risk on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how does that relate to all those icons? Well, imagine if Oprah hadn't talked to her professor and did exactly what her father wanted and gave her father all the power. And then she worked into it. She then kind of met him halfway, took the job because she had a mentor, and also made sure she literally said work. She had her schedule till 2:00 in the afternoon, and then she would not work past 10:30 at night because of darkness. And he was worried about her.
Yeah.
And then something happened beyond that where then she went all in. He probably saw it. The professor was behind her. She went all in and she left school.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the same thing. It's the microcosm of that is just that little creme brulee thing is literally what Oprah did.
Yeah. And then after that happened, I've kind of been checking myself in all different scenarios in my life, like in different situations, I'll check myself if it is something like that, if I'm just giving away my power, my autonomy, my choice just to make someone else comfortable, but they might not even know that I'm doing that. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you say that all the time. So it's kind of like, well, really, it could be something where it's an amazing creme brulee that both people will like,
Right.
as the allegory for
Right.
whatever this thing is that I pushed my needs to the back, or what I really wanted or felt like was the good decision.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, like you said, it can be a win-win when you're authentic with doing that, not giving away your power. I love that story. I love that you thought that was something we should talk about, the creme brulee. Also, I wanted to mention it had this amazing maple flavor note. You remember that?
Yes.
And the funny thing is that week I was dog sitting a little dog called Maple.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of stuff like that because
A lot of synchronicities.
Shooting, and I took you to MoonShooting without telling you.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And I've always seen it driving like down the PCH. I've always been like, man, that looks so cool.
So great.
So, yeah.
Right.
So it was a really cool, it was a powerful moment for power. There we go.
Right.
Powerful moment for me.
Right.
Because it really made me start thinking about, wow, in what other ways do I give up my power without even knowing it?
Right.
So I think this is a great message to kick off the first episode in this next series, is really think about the ways you're giving away your power in your life.
Yeah. So this next segment I call Law and Disorder. And these are not assertions. These are kind of rules to live by.
Okay.
And rules that are kind of not hardcore, but like one of them is the 80-20 rule of three, stuff like that.
Yeah, I
Stuff
love
I
those.
talk about all the time, right?
Mhm.
And how do we get people to understand those, but also in context of what we're talking about, right? So the rule that the law and disorder that I want to talk about right now, because this is about chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that one in particular is who you are is vastly more important than what you do. It's your brand and it's your power. So who you are is way more important than what you do.
Okay.
That's a really hard one. And that goes back to these icons. They recognized that they were building a brand about them.
Mm.
And that brand is so powerful. So people that you think, oh my God, that person promotes themselves too much. Well, no, you should be promoting yourself, but you should do it in a way that makes sense. And you can either promote your inauthentic self or your authentic self. But that's a really good rule that's so important, right?
Yeah. So who you are is way more important than what you do.
The brand of you is not the brand of your product, your job, your title, how much you make. The brand of you, and you do have a brand, like we talked about at the very beginning. You have a brand. And people like my hairdresser, who I love to death, says, I'm going to punch somebody in the throat next time I hear somebody in LA talk about building a brand. No, that's about an influencer. And that's the brand is weird because it's you're the brand of a product or their influencer brand. No, this is the brand of you. And it's not about being an influencer. It's if you talk about a friend or somebody, you say, oh, that person's like this.
Right.
Or that person has this. And that may be what the person wants you to know about them. They may be hiding stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's not their real power. And so they get labeled.
Right.
That's the worst thing that can happen in junior high or high school, is to get labeled as something, right?
Totally.
That's
to
your
get
brand.
that bad superlative that you didn't want.
Heathers, Mean Girls, you name it.
Yeah.
Ferris Bueller was labeled. He was the guy who didn't care.
Right.
He had the brand of I don't care.
But he probably cared a lot about something else.
Exactly.
So
Right,
the school just wasn't the world where he could.
Right. He saw how education wasn't working for the student.
Yeah.
It was only working for the people that were in charge.
Mm.
And that was his way of saying, screw that.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting. So that's a really cool concept, do you start thinking about it in terms of when you start to, it's probably a process to figure out what your brand is, not in the cheesy brand way, but just what do you stand for? What really makes you tick? What do you want people to say about you?
Right.
Maybe what do they say about you now? Not that matters, but
Right.
What
Right.
would people think of you when they think of you?
Right.
Versus what you want people to think of you. What ideally do you want to project out to the world?
From a law and disorder perspective, if you just get out of this, that you are a brand, that you're either a power or powerless brand, right? that the brand of you is who you are, not what you do.
Yeah.
Because everybody talks about what they do.
It's like the first thing that people ask.
Cocktail party, right? What do you do? How much
do you
you make?
do?
Blah, blah,
What do
blah,
you
blah.
do?
Do you think Steven Spielberg, they ask him what he does?
Yeah.
No. Do you think they ask Oprah what she does? Do you think any of these icons, they ask, Michael Jordan, what do you do?
What do you do?
What do you do? No, of course.
It's surpassed that.
It's way past that.
Yeah.
And you can do that on a small basis. People will be like, you come to a cocktail party, oh, that's the person, like they're making the world better, And like even in Hollywood, people like think, oh, like that person's an actor, but really their passion is rescue animals, right? They're the rescue animals. I got the guy who does the ice cream, the CBT guy, or Shappy, the pretzel guy. Like there's these people that are doing other things that are really cool and really interesting. But if you layer underneath them, they'll be about, Shappy's about bringing the joy of pretzels from Philadelphia, and he does a bunch of stuff with it. The guy who's done this ice cream guy, it's called CBT. He's bringing the joy of ice cream and what it was like on the East Coast to have soft serve. Like these are just like little things that you can do, right?
Right.
So, and we'll kind of unravel that, but like if you can't start with you as a brand, the power of you, and you in particular, right? It's more important who you are than what you do.
Right. I love that. This has inspired me. I think I'm at parties now, I'm going to ask people,
right.
So what's your brand? What do you stand for? Exactly. Or like, right. What makes you tick? Instead of, right. What do you do?
Right. What make you tick or anybody? Give me something interesting about what you love.
Yeah. What do you love?
Tell me some things, and like it really throws people off.
It does. Yeah. They're like, but
it will freak them out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But I think
stammer around it.
I think they'll like it though, because they don't have to talk about their job.
Yeah. In this MoonShooting series,
unless they want to,
we're going to do that. Like I helped a lot of startups get capital at higher valuations just because I did the same thing. What is your brand? What is your brand wanting to be? You have to sell the future of your brand and the power that you have to get to that future. It's the same with everybody else. Hey, this is my power. This is my brand. Instead of what you're doing and where you're going and everyone's selling what their product is what they want to be, talk about the power of you, the brand of you, and we're going to dissect that so it's easily understood from a scoring value tools perspective, giving you the tools to talk about that in a reasonable way. And everyone's unique, but we're going to give them some substance around that, and then get to the point where I understand the power of you, but then I want to know what you're going to do with it. Then I'm curious. So when people like in Silicon Valley, when people start talking about their product right away, instead of who they are and their vision, the VCs are like, forget it.
Interesting.
I don't care about your product. Everybody's got a product. Everybody's got the best product.
Mm-hmm.
No, they don't invest in that. They're going to want to know how you're going to take the brand of you and the vision of the world you want to create and how that happens. And then that's the product and how you scale the product. But that's not the initial thing. That's not the thing. That's not the story. That's not who you are is the story, the beginning of the story. What your power is, and then what you do with it is the vision of what you want to do with your power. Whether it's something super big like Oprah or whether it's something that's local, that you're going to make a change in your neighborhood. Like whatever that is, you're going to make a change in your job or your thing. You talked too about when you were in your sorority,
mm-hmm.
You made a huge change because you wanted to eliminate the notion of hazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that you branded yourself as the activist, right?
I guess
the
to some degree. Yeah.
You're taking all the fun out of sororities.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
But that was your brand, right?
Yeah, it was important to me, and
right.
Enough so to try and make that change.
Right. So Law and Disorder is that. That's the one thing you're going to get out of it is you. Start with you, and then we're going to build on top of that as to what you want to do with you. Not what you want to create or make, what the power of you, and how you as a creator. Everyone's a creator. Everyone's creating something.
Yeah.
Whether it's a kid, whether it's something, whether you're the best teacher, you're known as a second grade teacher. My dad was a teacher, so I always go back to that, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, small things, small ways. You can build a bar, you can build this, you can do this, whatever it is, at your job, anywhere. But if you don't understand what your real power is, and our power is going to cross over into things like your gifts, but also your expertise and how you can continue to hone that expertise, what they call the 10,000 hours.
And I think a cool way of combining it all, I'm thinking of this, it's kind of like the theme of what you're saying is that really think about what your brand is use that power to make an impact in your world, however big, small, in between it is. But recognizing those things can give you your power back. And then you can go make an impact being the best version of yourself.
Right. So remember going back to the very, very beginning, when I think about what the moonshot is, it's thinking of that something is impossible.
Right.
So now we're transitioning to our last segment, which is really moonshooting.
Mm-hmm.
How does this apply to anybody who's got a moonshot?
Yeah.
Right. So anything that we think is impossible, and impossible could be, you came up economically disadvantaged, and now you're the principal of a high school.
Mm-hmm.
You had no money, you had nothing, you didn't have the parents that you needed, but all of a sudden that's your moonshot. That's what you wanted to be, right? You wanted that thing, right?
Yeah.
So this all applies to that. The impossibility of something. If you think that you need to have other people's powers and if you think you need to have Oprah's power or Michael Jordan's power or this power or that power, you're confused. Their powers were unique to them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to focus on the uniqueness of what power you have, and the branding of that power is how you market it.
Okay.
How you market it to a small community or to the world.
Okay. So do more of that.
The marketing of it, which is the selling of your brand, which is how you expose yourself, that's the personal choice. That's where you go, you're already powerful. We're going to show you how you're already powerful, but how do you use your power to get your moonshot? And your moonshot is the extension of how you use what's unique to you and to the population of people that you think you need to get it to. Whether it's a few people or a lot of people or the world. That's the difference.
Yeah. I love that. That's really powerful.
That's powerful.
And that's our theme. That's our theme of the series is power. So that's perfect because it transitions us to our next episode of Moonshooting, where we're going to talk about things like how your work ethic and toxic productivity can keep you powerless. And then what you can do to change that mindset.
Ooh, toxic productivity. That should be fun for the both of us.
Yeah.
Toxic productivity is very close to our hearts because we suffer from it in a lot of ways.
Yes, in the ways that we will just work ourselves to the ground. And as you guys have heard from the past couple episodes, especially when you're out of alignment, it'll just...
Right. And a lot of the issues around power and other things are really a product of toxic productivity.
Interesting.
So there's going to be some interesting outcomes to what we talk about.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited too.
They should be.
But thank y'all for listening, and let's do our sign off. So this has been Kristen Espinosa.
Mark Modica.
And this has been Moonshooting Mission Control. Signing off.
Signing off.